だが全てを忘れた一人の剣士が再びその手に剣を取る。
私たちは帝国に反旗を翻す。君の力を貸してほしい。
Langrisser Sea of Sword is an upcoming cross-platform RPG from Blackjack Studio, slated for a global release. While it is already available to wishlist on Steam, the game is currently hosting its first alpha test in China. This initial playtest offers around 10 hours of content, giving us a solid first look at what the title has to offer. From the moment you step into its world, it feels like a return to the roots of the classic JRPG, a fantasy adventure built around exploration, memorable characters, a story-driven journey, and a world that invites you to slow down and look around. And that feeling extends to the presentation. Sea of Sword uses a refined 2D art style for that timeless illustrated look, focusing on beautiful character artwork and atmospheric environments. But beneath that nostalgic JRPG exterior is something very distinctly Langrisser. Tactical, turn-based combat, where your characters, troop types, positioning, and the terrain itself can determine the outcome of a battle. So, in this video I want to take a first look at Langrisser Sea of Sword, going over the story, exploration, combat, character progression, and presentation, talking about what I think works particularly well in this first test, and what I simply can't judge yet. On that point, this early build of Sea of Sword doesn't have an English localization yet, so there are certain things, especially the story and dialogue, that I can only evaluate to a limited degree. The developers have also stated that the music, voice acting and main and side quests are still in development, so this is very much a first impression, rather than a review of a finished game. The opening of Sea of Sword throws us into a desperate battle that pits our protagonist and his companions against an overpowering antagonist. After a dramatic showdown, we find ourselves waking up in an unfamiliar place, bereft of our memories. Thus, the journey begins, playing as the Nameless One in search of their lost identity. Along the way, you encounter a handful of companions, and together, you become involved in the conflicts unfolding across a continent that is yours to explore. It's a very classic setup for an RPG and grants you an immediate sense of adventure. That said, the developers state that they are aiming for something considerably more ambitious than a simple amnesiac hero saves the world story. The official premise describes Sea of Sword as a tale about memory, choice and defiance, with political power struggles, competing interests, and the rise and fall of nations all playing a role. It's also stated that Langrisser Sea of Sword isn't a completely disconnected new RPG that just happens to use the Langrisser name. They've teased that characters of previous Langrisser adventures will gradually make their way back into the new story. If you're already a fan of the franchise, there's an additional layer of nostalgia and recognition for you. And if you've never played a title of this series before, it's still going to establish a new protagonist and a new adventure that you can experience without having to know any of this series' history. Now, due to the missing localization and the limited scope of this playtest, I haven't seen enough of the story to judge its overall writing, direction or character development. What I can say is that the presentation clearly delivers, with top-notch Japanese voice acting, as well as artwork and music that establish the atmosphere beautifully. I'm looking forward to getting a better understanding of the story and world once we get access to an English language version. A core part of the experience is exploration. Once you've gone through the initial tutorial, you're given a fairly large world to move around in. While not a completely seamless open world, the individual areas are quite expansive. You can follow the main story through your quest log, but you're also free to wander around, talk to NPCs, pick up side quests, find treasure chests, gather resources, and simply see what you can discover. To avoid disrupting your flow by having every enemy encounter turn into a lengthy tactical engagement, you can also skip battles that are not quest related. Rather than moving from one battle to the next, you really feel like going on an adventure, giving you those classic JRPG vibes. As you're progressing through the world, you're gaining upgrades for your base camp. This essentially ties your account progression to your exploration efforts, granting you upgrades for combat, research and forging. Importantly, reaching higher exploration milestones allows you to raise the training level of your characters. For example, at baseline, your characters are kept at level 20. The next combat upgrade, which you unlock upon reaching exploration level 10, increases the cap by 5 while also adjusting all underleveled characters to level 21. This introduces both a bottom and a ceiling for your account, reducing the strain of building characters significantly. It's obviously too early to tell how substantial the exploration becomes later in the game, but from what I've seen in this test, there's a genuine attempt here to make the world more than just a backdrop for tactical battles. Once you enter combat, Langrisser's tactical RPG heritage becomes obvious. Combat is turn-based and grid-based, with different commanders and troop types having their own strengths, weaknesses, movement ranges and attack ranges. Most encounters unfold over a sequence of battles in which you either have to defeat all or one specific opponent, or alternatively escape from the battlefield. When you select an enemy, you're shown a preview of the battle outcome. Once you confirm the engagement, you're going into a brief animated combat sequence. Each commander can equip up to 3 skills. Depending on the class, these can be attack, healing or utility skills. Choosing a single target attack shows a skill animation during the combat sequence, while AoE attacks or healing skills are executed directly on the battlefield grid. A unit's HP is not restored automatically after battle and must be managed properly until the end of an encounter. The biggest innovation here is the dual commander and troop system. Commanders join forces, which you see visualized as 2 characters sharing the same position on the grid, each with their own HP bar. A unit consisting of 2 commanders is only defeated when both HP bars are depleted. When one commander falls in a battle, they can still resume the fight after receiving healing. When combining characters, technically one is the main commander who contributes 2 abilities and whose class gets applied to the unit, while the other is a deputy who contributes 1 skill. Each commander adds a respective troop to the unit, which you can assign to the front or the back depending on their typing. For instance, you may assign shielded infantry to the front while having cavalry or archers in the back. Some of the characters have special synergies or bonds that enable the use of a cooperative skill or ultimate ability, if you will, which is particularly potent and flashy. So, instead of building a unit around a single commander and troop type, you combine 2 into 1. Both commanders contribute to the resulting unit, including their troop types and abilities. Rather than simply asking which character is strongest, you're also searching for synergy. Likewise, you also have to look at the composition of the enemy unit and decide which 2 commanders you want to bring in response. I think that's an interesting foundation for a tactical system, and the concept works well with the Langrisser formula. Then, terrain also plays a role on the battlefield, which isn't simply a flat grid. Elevation matters such that moving uphill costs more movement points, but being on higher ground gives you defensive advantages when attacked, while attacking an enemy downhill grants you bonus damage. Moreover, some of the terrain is interactive, allowing commanders to manipulate the battlefield itself. For example, certain abilities can destroy bridges to hinder enemy movement, or freeze rivers, turning them into solid ground, thereby creating new routes across the map. Overall, the dual commander synergy and terrain manipulation promise an enhanced combat experience beyond what you traditionally expect from the genre. Sea of Sword has quite a few progression systems layered on top of each other. You will find traditional RPG elements such as character levels, skills and equipment with set bonuses. So far, it appears that characters only level through combat, but as noted before, the level progression is linked with your exploration, adjusting unused characters automatically to your current training level minimum. Characters have multiple skills they can equip, 3 at most, though even fewer in practice due to the dual commander setup. There's a class advancement system when reaching certain level milestones. This unlocks new abilities, talents and troop upgrades, and those advancements are shared between characters belonging to the same class. Materials and equipment are obtained through exploration, but also from more traditional resource farming. You can spend stamina that recharges over time on instant stages that drop materials for specific classes, while equipment can be obtained through separate boss battles. The game also has a fairly large talent network for your troops. As you work your way through it, you can unlock passive bonuses such as increased damage under certain conditions or additional movement range. So you're gradually developing the character, their class and their troops as you progress. Importantly, most of these systems share their progression across your account, so unless a character has a completely new class or troop type, you're not rebuilding from scratch every time. Hopefully, that means spending less time on repetitive grinding and more time actually playing through the adventure. I guess it goes without saying that it's too early to tell what the long-term gameplay loop of Sea of Sword looks like. For now, the opening portion feels like a fairly cohesive combination of JRPG exploration and tactical RPG progression. Sea of Sword's presentation is probably its most immediately obvious differentiator. The game uses a thickly painted 2D art style. Environments have that classic fantasy RPG feeling, backgrounds show attention to detail, and the combat sequences and animated skill cutscenes give the experience more depth. The developers clearly demonstrate a lot of passion in the design of their game world. The game's atmosphere is further enriched by its beautiful score, composed by Yasunori Nishiki, best known for his work on the Octopath Traveler series.
どうやらお前を元の世界に返す手助けはできそうにない。だが友よ、お前と肩を並べて戦えたことを光栄に思う。まだ終わりではありません、イリサル王子。私はあなたが王になる日を楽しみにしておりますよ。
Then, unlike many other anime-style games on the market, the character illustrations feature relatively realistic and mature proportions with more adult-oriented allure. There are both male and female characters, although the roster currently leans more heavily toward females, often with a sexy aesthetic. So even though the game deviates from the modern trend of 3D RPGs, its art style is quite fitting for the fantasy setting. Overall, Sea of Swords' restrained visual presentation and coherent identity leave an extremely polished first impression. In conclusion, Langrisser Sea of Sword manages to deliver a convincing blend of the classic JRPG adventure and a deep tactical combat system. Personally, I'm a fan of both of the J and SRPG genres, and I'm glad to see the different pieces come together so naturally. Indeed, the exploration generally feels like a core part of the game rather than a corridor between battles, and the tactical combat with its dual unit setup and terrain manipulation provides an interesting twist on the formula. I also appreciate how the game is designed around a shared progression system for characters, classes and troop development, which hopefully means that the barrier of entry for new characters will be lower than for other live service titles. Overall, with an interesting foundation and a distinct visual identity, Sea of Swords showing a lot of promise. If you're already a fan of Langrisser, there's obviously plenty here for you to keep an eye on, but even if you've never touched the series before, I think the game is worth watching for RPG fans. This first alpha is only a glimpse at the final game, but it has me interested in seeing where this adventure goes. Here's to hoping that an English language test isn't far off. Let me know in the comments what you think of the game and whether you're going to give it a try. And for PC players, don't forget to wishlist the game on Steam. In any case, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.